of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. In the middle, we have Mr. Nishan Bolton. He is the Executive Director of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. And at the far left of my direction is Ms. Barbara Hogan, the widow of our leader and our founder at the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, and our founding trustee at the Nelson Mandela Foundation, the one we laid to rest a few days ago, Mr. Ahmed Kathrada. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to hand over to them now to address us. There's a statement prepared. After that, we'll take a few questions, and after that, we'll issue the statements to everybody in the room.
Thank you very much, Luzuko. Good afternoon. Well, for a special welcome, of course, to Member Hogan. Thank you very much for coming out today. Welcome to the trustees of both foundations here present, people who support the work of the two foundations. Thank you very much for being here. And thanks to members of the media for your presence. As you are aware that for us, this is still a period of mourning. We continue to mourn Mr. K, and I think it's something that will take a while for us to say that we have healed. So while healing, we then had to come out and at least begin to address some of the things that we begin to be concerned about. Today, a year ago, Mr. K took staff of the Nelson Mandela Foundation to Robben Island. And one of the things that he tried to impress upon us as a team was that one of the things that we must work hard at is to work together in order to make sure that Madiba's legacy was secure. He emphasized the fact that within the hardships that they had, that they went through, they found moments that were profound, and they made light of even the most difficult. And I think that message resonates with us and resonates with me, because one would expect that those who have gone through that kind of hardship, that those who have gone through 10 years, 15 years, 22 years, 26 years, 27 years of imprisonment because of fighting against any kind of injustice and the apartheid government, will be more careful with our democratic process and democratic project. And the question that we should ask ourselves now is, how can those who went through that kind of hardship be so reckless with our democratic project? There are governance systems. We can never be sure what we're dealing with on any given day. Social security systems that are always under threat, that you can never be guaranteed of things that you thought you knew the day before. And having gone through that kind of hardship, you would believe and want to believe strongly that you'd never have people who would just be so reckless with that kind of thing. This is a key moment in our democracy. And I think we need to use the kinds of leadership principles that the likes of Mr. K had. Be determined to bring about change, and as we bring that change, we say, it is not for us today, but it is for those who are still to be born. And I want to say a special thanks to members of the media for keeping our democratic project alive by informing us of what's going on, even though sometimes you keep us awake late at night. And as I hand over to Sean, I want to say to Mr. K, your passing and every word that you left us, including tapping me on the shoulder the last time you came to this foundation saying, I take myself too seriously. That in fact we must take our democracy seriously. And I guess when I told my colleagues about this moment that you tapped me on the shoulder and said, I take myself seriously, they said maybe because having gone through 26 years of imprisonment, he didn't think anything can beat that. But I think for all of us, we must then say, the next 22 years must be different from the 22 years that we've gone through today, up to today. I'll hand over to Sham.
Use this. Good afternoon, everybody. This is like a deer getting caught in the headlights, you know. Let me just firstly greet the Deputy Chair of the Foundation, Mandela Nkomfe, who has now joined the ranks of the unemployed. He's a former advisor to the former Minister of Finance. Let me also apologize on behalf of our chairperson, Derek Hanekom. He is out looking for a job. And is unable to be with us here today. The special welcome to Lalu Chiba, Robben Island friend and lifelong friend of Uncle Kathy, Max Sisulu, and many others here who would have had their own special relationships with Uncle Kathy. We had hoped that we would not be here today. We had hoped that today we would start our own silent process of grieving and starting to get to grips with the loss. Unfortunately, we won't be afforded that opportunity for some time now. Our statement reads as follows. It says, Ahmed Kathrada, defend our democracy. The Ahmed Kathrada Foundation and the Nelson Mandela Foundation are shocked and deeply saddened by the unilateral announcement by the presidency that the memorial service in honor of the late Ahmed Mohammed Kathrada has been postponed indefinitely. Politely, it's cancelled. This was without any consultation whatsoever with his wife, Barbara Hogan, the Kathrada family, and the Kathrada Foundation. Now, we have been discussing this memorial with the presidency over the last few days and immediately after the funeral as well. So it came as quite a bit of a shock that they had unilaterally decided to postpone without giving any reason. It's a simple one-line sentence. We view this conduct by the president on the anniversary of the humble letter written to him exactly 1 year ago by Ahmed Kathrada as totally unacceptable. The memorial would have been an ideal opportunity for the state to pay tribute to the memory of Ahmed Kathrada, who for 3/4 of a century selflessly sacrificed his life in the interest of the people. He was the revolutionary who has deservedly taken his rightful place alongside the many giants of our democratic revolution. He is a symbol who people here and abroad have come to love and adore. Ahmed Kathrada, as you know, passed away in the early hours of Tuesday morning, March 28th, and on Wednesday at his funeral, people gathered from all walks of life, young and old, men and women, including stalwarts in their numbers, to name a few. Gracia Machel and Winnie Madikizela Mandela, the surviving Rivonia trialist Andrew Mlangeni, Dennis Goldberg, the last surviving leader of the 1956 Women's March, Sophie Williams-De Bruyn, Lalu Chiba, the members of the Sisulu and Tambo families and the Mandela families, George Bizos, former speakers of the National Assembly, Freni Jinwala, Max Sisulu, former Presidents Mbeki and Motlanthe, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, Chief Justice Mogoeng, and I might as well EFF leader Julius Malema, Zwelenzima Vavi and others, religious leaders from all walks of faith, leaders of all sectors of business, labor and civil society. In addition to our dismay at the indefinite postponement of the official memorial in honor of Ahmed Kathrada tomorrow, we woke up to the news this morning that 5 ministers and 3 deputy ministers have been removed from office. It includes Minister Pravin Gordhan, or ex-Minister Pravin Gordhan now, his deputy Nkabisi Jonas, who had worked tirelessly to stabilize our economy in the face of self-induced political instability. They and others, in our view, have been removed for protecting the country from corruption and looting and speaking truth to power. They were not even shown the courtesy of being informed of their removal, and they learnt of their removal through the media. The decision of the President using presidential prerogative, and as we have learned, without the support of the Deputy President or the Secretary General of the ANC, follows hot on the heels of, one, the decision of the ConCourt in the disastrous SASSA debacle around the continuation of payment of social grants, the SABC debacle, South Africa being summoned to The Hague to explain the violation of its obligations at the ICC, the President joining a court application by the Minister of Finance that attempts to interfere with our financial institutions. We are angered and outraged by the choices and the consequences of the decisions of the President, including retaining ministers who have been found glaringly wanting in executing their responsibilities and putting narrow interests ahead of the interests of the country and its people. Contrary to the populist narrative that the President is furthering an agenda of radical economic transformation, the opposite is true. The consequences of last night's announcement have the dramatic result that our scarce resources will be diverted to servicing debt and irrational procurement decisions rather than the delivery of services. The Foundation therefore calls on the leaders and ordinary members of the ANC across the country, leaders and members of the liberation movements and progressive civil society formations to build a new consensus that brings together all South Africans demanding accountability and ethical governance. We called on ministers and leaders of the ANC who care about the future of democracy and the Constitution to speak up and call on the President in the best interest of the country to step down. We call on the parliamentary leadership of the ANC, supported by all opposition parties, to insist that Parliament be recalled immediately or reconvened immediately to debate a motion of no confidence proposed by the ANC leadership in Parliament. We call on all members of Parliament to unite and support a motion of no confidence. We call on the people of South Africa in their mass formations to take to the streets and make their views known. We support the rallying calls resounding across South Africa that the people united will never be defeated and that our country is not for sale. In conclusion, let me announce that we, the Kathrada Foundation, the Mandela Foundation, supported by the Communist Party and other formations, will hold our own memorial service tomorrow at the City Hall in Johannesburg at 2 o'clock. And I have just been informed that the former Minister of Finance, Pravin Gordhan, will be there to speak, as will Barbara Hogan. Thank you very much. Shuffling the cabinet.
Shan says we're shuffling the cabinet here. I'd like to pay a special tribute to the Kathrada family who are sitting here with us at the moment. I think both myself and the Kathrada family felt that when Mr. K was buried on Wednesday, that it was one of the most fitting tributes in the styles and tradition of our mass democratic movement that Mr. K could ever have been given. And so the enormous spirit that engulfed the country around the time of his passing away and that funeral was both calming, comforting, but gave us inspiration about the fighting spirit of our country. We welcomed a commemoration service hosted by the presidency, because that is what is befitting of one of the giants of our country. But let me say that last night, when the news began to filter through about the dastardly deeds that were being done in dark corners of this country, many of us in the family began to have second doubts whether we would want a commemoration under the auspices of a president who has clearly gone rogue, who has clearly defied his own party. You have a deputy president saying clearly and outright, forthrightly today, that the removal of the Minister of Finance and his deputy was based on a dubious intelligence report. You have the Secretary General of the ANC saying loudly and clearly the list of ministers who were to be replaced and taken out did not come from the ANC, it came from another side. What does that mean to us? It means, quite simply, that the president is not applying his mind in making decisions about one of the most critical issues in our country, and that is a decision about the team of people who are going to lead our country. Surely that is an indictment of the president when his own party is rejecting him. His own party rejects what he has done. If this is not a defining moment in our history, nothing will be a defining moment. Looking to citizens of this country, I think all of us are utterly dismayed. We live in this country, we love this country, we have hopes, and we have people who live, the majority of people in this country, who live desperate lives of poverty and marginalization. That a president can think to withdraw a finance minister and his deputy from an incredibly important international roadshow, that he could think that he could just do that and that has no consequences for the poor, shows what an inept president we have. For the ordinary citizens of this country, it is time for your voices to be heard. This is not a time for petty differences amongst us to divide us. Our enemies, who are sworn enemies, and we all have our little fights and everything in the progressive movement, can no longer be enemies. We have to form a broad, mass democratic alliance here to take on the forces of evil and the rogues and the thieves who want to steal our country from before us. We need to say to people, they need to put pressure on, if there are ANC councillors in their ward, they need to call those ANC councillors and ask them what they are doing. You can no longer say, oh, that's another sphere of government. You represent the ANC, you've got to be accountable. We need to say on people, call on your MPLs, your ANC MPLs, ask them what they're doing. They have sworn, and MPs as well, call on your MPs. When they were sworn in as MPs and MPLs, they swore an oath to the Constitution. Party loyalty is important. But when we are in as grave a situation as we are today, the Constitution, this very Constitution that we love and we fought for, this Constitution must take precedence over any lingering notion that party loyalty is above anything. I do not say this lightly. As Cassie said in his letter to the President, he remained silent even though there were many things that worried him. But he said, there is a moment in which you have to break the silence. And I think this is a moment when MPs, ANC MPs, sitting in Parliament, need to look into themselves and ask themselves, what is the constitutional duty that is imposed upon us in terms of this Constitution? There are two clauses around the presidency in this Constitution, which deals with a president that is not behaving presidentially. The Constitution provides the basis for remedying that fact. This is not silly issues of factional battles in the ANC. These are grander and greater projects about the accountability of our leadership to the rank and file of our people. And so I call on everyone here not to remain silent, not to sit on the fence, and not to remain looking after your own narrow self-interests. The country needs to be taken back. A country united is never divided, and this country is not for sale. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very important moment in the history of South Africa right now, and we can feel that with the words that are coming from the leaders that come from civil society, but also generally across the length and breadth of South Africa right now. And I'm sure the media also is concerned, and maybe if someone is wondering, what can I do? Keep the story going. You have a responsibility to tell the story and keep the people of South Africa in the loop of what they should do and what they can do to effect change. Now, I'm going to allow for questions. If you have any questions you want to direct to our panel at the front, I'm going to take a round of questions. Please indicate where you come from quickly, and then we can. I've got Griselda noted. Then the other hand. I've got one hand here. 3. All right, I've got 3 for now. Griselda.
Good afternoon, and condolences once again.
Thank you.
Mum Hogan. I just want to get your personal feelings on how it made you feel just hours after Ahmed Kathrada had been laid to rest, that such a shocking statement was made to South Africa about a reshuffle to the cabinet, which you're clearly upset about. And secondly, to both foundations, would you be considering joining the picket line of any organizations that decide to march against the decisions that President Jacob Zuma has made?
Thank you.
My question would be, many people have said that the Deputy President of the country and of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa,
many people have said that the Deputy President of the country and of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, mainly political analyst Karima Brown, that many ANC members and South Africans are looking to him to provide leadership and to put his hand up and say, not in my name. In my understanding, Ramaphosa, Deputy President Ramaphosa, is or was a board member of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation at some stage. Have you had any engagements with him and other ANC top 6 officials who differ with President Jacob Zuma to promote ANC MPs to vote with the opposition to remove the incumbent president? And the last question would be, if President Jacob Zuma doesn't step down, are you willing to go against your own formation and party that you grew up in and struggled for, which is the ANC? Thank you.
Hi, Rich Poplak from the Daily Maverick. There's been a lot of talk about building coalitions, but this is still a very, very divided country. Considering same SA and the EFF in the same room seems to be a bit of a stretch at this stage. What are these two foundations doing to contribute to coalition building? How would these coalitions work? How would they look? And what would they do?
All right, we've got those 3 questions. Can we answer those first? And then I'll take another round. I'm sure others are going to think of their questions from the answers that are going to come through.
Okay, Griselda, how did I feel when I heard the news of the cabinet reshuffle? I was incredibly angered. If this was a presidency that was listening to the sentiments in this country, the funeral service of Mr. Kathrada alone would have alerted them to the high emotions and feelings that are going on in this country. What it says to us is that the president is absolutely willing to just push ahead with his own personal agenda of greed, corruption, and the seeking and the following of his own self-interests, regardless of the interests of the country. We did not fight for that. We do not accept that. And for Mr. Kathrada, you know, in the week that he's died, surely there could have been just some part of a respect. Surely there could have been, in the light of the letter, that this is 1 year that he wrote that letter, could they have not held off with their dastardly deeds? And this is the caliber, this is the low-down character of the people that are running our institutions at the moment.
I think Griselda, you asked, so would we be joining the picket line? I think it's important that, I think it's important that when we consider what next, we consider all options. The Nelson Mandela Foundation recently wrote to the presidency and to the ANC for asking for a meeting. The presidency had reverted that we were going to have that meeting this coming week. And also with the ANC, we'd be doing the same. So we will consider all the options that are available to us for us to be able to pursue the agenda that we want to push. But I think I'd like to add something that I think it's important for us to just note that once you say picket line, it's as if, again, we make it about just the reshuffling. I think we're saying that institutions are at risk. It's not about individuals. Because I see that the detractors of those who are coming out against what's been happening in our country keep saying, are you now making a little god out of Pravin Gordhan? And I think we should be careful that we're not saying that. It's not about the individual, but in fact about how institutions are run, about governance in our country. When social security of our people remain such a big issue, that we have 17 million people dependent on social grants, should make us realize actually the problem is bigger. Because with every little crisis that we keep fermenting ourselves, we're creating another million people who are then on the street, particularly young people. What should keep us awake at night should be that one question: how many young people are we breeding in our country that have nothing to lose? And it's those people that we should be worried about, because then they follow the queue of social security, and it can't be acceptable. Regarding the question from Samkelo about the Deputy President saying not in my name, I think we shouldn't expect that just of the Deputy President. I think we should expect it of every South African to say not in my name. And that's what the call should be about, not to again do what we tend to do more of as South Africans, which is expect to be led. I think we say it's time that South Africans lead and say we will show the way that when we say not in my name, what we mean. In terms of coalitions, again, it's important that when one talks about these coalitions, we go back to what Barbara Hogan was saying earlier on, that sometimes it's better to not even think of your little corner issues, but say what are the bigger issues that are out there that need to be addressed, and how can we address them. And we are hoping that as the two foundations, maybe the first shot at this would be the memorial, that you begin to focus the mind around the one issue. Here lies a man who has just been put in the ground, who believed that something was wrong in our country. Do you all believe that, like he did, that something is wrong? And I think coalitions are better thought through when the mind is focused. And I think that's what we would be calling for.
The Kathrada Foundation will be at the picket lines. I think we have been thus far in many different picket lines. We have been part of Save South Africa. We have been part of picket lines on issues of racism. We've been part of different kinds of picket lines. So on this particular one, we will do and play our bit as well, which is why we are here. I echo Salo's sentiments about the Deputy President, but I think I would want to also say that there are many who would want him to be more explicit on his stance. And personally, I can't speak for the foundation on this because we don't have a view on that. But I would want to see him saying much more than I'm disappointed. I'm sure that he is. I'm sure that he is grappling with these issues as well. The statements he made on TV today were certainly much more than he has ever said before. And I think it's an indication that he himself is getting to understand the mood of the country. We've not canvassed any ANC MPs about voting and how they should vote, but that is part of the work we're saying that needs to be done. Will we act against the ANC? I think when the ANC does wrong, we will. We will certainly do that. We have done it in different ways. The two foundations, together with the Tambo Foundation, March last year wrote to the ANC. We were, I think, the first to do so, to attempt to say to it, you are going off course. We met with the ANC as the three foundations. We raised our concerns. And as I think most other delegations, we were told, well, there'll be a follow-up meeting where we will explore these issues. That follow-up meeting didn't happen. At least the Mandela Foundation has had indications of a follow-up meeting. But as the veterans would indicate, there can be long drawn-out processes that actually might not lead anywhere. Coalitions, I think Uncle Kathy, in the last 2 years, was very emphatic with us that the Kathrada Foundation, although he came from within the ANC, was not an ANC-aligned structure. And in the last few years, he was beginning to talk to people across all political persuasions. And as I indicated at the funeral and made an omission, it was his quest to engage both the EFF and the DA and to take them individually or together to the island. So one, that they would understand the history, but secondly, to begin to also urge them that they needed to be seeing themselves as part of a broader democratic project. Unfortunately, we didn't get that opportunity, but those sentiments, by and large, would also be those of the foundation. I think the issue at hand really requires us to move beyond party affiliations today. The interest of the country is far greater than that.
Right, we'll take another set of questions. Got a question here and one there. 2, 3, and 4. Shall I take the 5th and close the round? All right, I'll take the 5th and we'll close. All right, let's go.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Belana Pahadi from Eyewitness News. I hear you answering a few questions, though I just want a specific answer. As you say that, Nishan, that it was Ahmed Kathrada's quest on to take the EFF perhaps to the Robben Island in a quest for them to understand the history. Will you perhaps now, as a foundation, be considering, for the sake of the nation's politics aside, to continue with that quest, of course, and secondly, are you now going to think against the cabinet reshuffle, also thinking about having talks with opposition parties such as the DA and the EFF to for you guys to get support, perhaps, in your quest for the president to step down?
Panas Belikosi from ZDF German TV. Question to Barbara Hogan. Whilst you were still minister in the cabinet, how would you characterize your relationship with President Zuma? And were you at any instance forced or coerced to enter in transactions that you thought were not above board? And do you have an instance where you think this is a telling moment that the president is a crook? Thank you.
All right, let's take that one there at the back.
Marcel Gordon from ENCA. I suppose this question is for Mrs. Hogan. I deepest sympathy to you for your loss as
Thank
well. It is 1 year on today from the Mandela decision finding handed down by the Constitutional Court. Nothing has been done in that year by our Parliament. Could I ask, in your opinion, on what do you base your faith that now is the time when those within Parliament, those within the top six, those within the party that you called home for so long, will finally wake up to their conscience and do the right thing? Because I suppose also the point is that many of them are familial to you, they are your friends, and perhaps you can give us some insight into what is so different from today as opposed to the last few years when the evidence has been there all along.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Ron Rose Joseph, also from ENCA. I have a question to either foundation or Ms. Hogan against my deepest condolences. What would you say to the newly appointed cabinet ministers? What would be your expectations or feelings towards them? And to MPs who are considering resigning, do you think that that's the right course of action at this point in time?
We have one here.
I hope my voice will carry. I'll speak quite loud. My name is Cloud. I'm from the Times. My condolences to you and the family. This question has to be asked, I know. Will you stand against President Zuma wanting to attend the memorial that he so, as you call it, unilaterally cancelled? And then, do you think it's too late to ask for reconciliation, to ask for a corrective step from the presidency, from the foundations? Do you think that you would want to see him try to fix this in that sense? Or is it too late?
All right, thank you very much. Right, can we take that last set of questions?
That's good.
Okay. The question of what is the basis of the faith going forward? I have no inner knowledge, no knowledge of the inner workings and mood and whatever. I just have what the media feeds me. But I've been an MP myself for many, many, many years. I understand and can interpret moods within and feelings within caucus. You can pick it up very quickly. What are those MPs experiencing at the moment? Time and time again they are being humiliated. Let us just remember that 2 cabinet ministers that they have called to be cast out of cabinet, Batabile Dlamini and Faith Mutambi, still remain in cabinet this day. Now, they took a very, very brave stance on this. And you know, there's a limit in which you can be humiliated by your own party. But let's not say that this is the party. The party, the senior leadership in their party is distancing themselves from the decisions of the president. So let us say that the ANC is conceivably distancing themselves at the moment, and it's the president who's out in the cold, not the parliamentary caucus that is out in the cold. And this is what makes it so absolutely different from previous times. In politics, you often have to swallow what you don't like. You have to go along, you have to choose your battles and whatever. But there comes a point in time, as it came with Kathy, where you can no longer remain silent, that you can no longer look your children in the face and say, I am a decent human being. And I anticipate that these are the kind of discussions that are going on amongst our public representatives at the moment.
Let me say that the two foundations are not initiating a new coalition. There are existing initiatives on the ground. We will consult with them, and where we can add value, we will certainly do that. We think that our voices, the presence of these foundations, can add value to existing initiatives. And should they think that we can play a bigger role, we will certainly consider that. So we don't see ourselves here as starting some new formation or some new coalition or some new initiative. We will, however, try to persuade existing initiatives that there is a need for maximum unity and that there is a need for civil society formations as well as all political formations, including those within what I would call the progressive of the ANC, to come together around the issue that we are facing today. The expectations of newly appointed ministers and so forth, it's a very difficult question. We would have the expectations of any minister to fulfill the obligations of the Constitution. Nothing more, nothing less. They must do what is required. The issue of the president, you saw the statement or day before yesterday in terms of who would lead the government's delegation to the memorial service. Government had mandated the deputy president to attend the memorial service and to speak on its behalf. Too late for reconciliation? No, we can't stop government from doing whatever it wants, but we will be proceeding with our own memorial service, with the Communist Party and a whole range of other formations. Should it come at some point that the government wants to do something, we hope that they will consult with us. And should we find what they are proposing acceptable, we might do it. But at this point in time, they said it was cancelled. Initially, it was postponed indefinitely, and the latest statement said it's postponed to a further date. We're not. I don't know what their views. I don't know what they're thinking about. But I can't see the need for ongoing memorials. We've got other work to do.
Yeah, I think it's only one question about the new cabinet ministers. I think I'm a slave of hope that one should still be hopeful that they will prove the president right. That they will bring more efficiency to the system, that they will help protect the system against any kind of abuse, and that they will help build this nation that actually needs its socio-economic needs addressed. And if we are to do that, none of us will ever have an issue. In fact, we would be your first biggest supporters to then make sure that you follow through on that. So I'm saying prove your doubters wrong and make sure that you deliver on your mandate. Just as we wrap up, I think South Africa needs to keep asking itself the key question. Are we still on course? And what do we need to do to get back on course? Yeah, and once we've answered that question, we can then go back to the key question that we are not a forgetful nation. We are a nation of people who never forget where we come from. And those who have spent 10 years in Robben Island, 15 years, as I said, 27 years, Laluchiba here having spent 26 years in 18 years on Robben Island, that will never forget what you went through. That in your name, we will make sure to still keep going at it to help build a country that our children's children will be proud of. And that to Mr. K, we will continue to say that you've left us feeling hollow, but we will fill that void by doing the right thing every time, by helping achieve the dreams of our people, of just having their dignity restored every day.
Can I just, you know, there's, related to the question about what we would say to the new ministers, I have obviously my doubts about these new ministers. I think all of us do. And they're going to have to prove themselves pretty well to, I think, convince us. But I know that there are also calls for good ministers to stand down. I can understand the rationale underlying that. But I do think that this is a time not to vacate your position, because these people are so hell-bent, the other forces are so hell-bent on their agenda, that they will just, if good ministers resign, they will just pack them with people who will do whatever they are told to do. I would prefer to call on good ministers and good civil servants everywhere in this country to fight the good fight. Rather be driven out fighting the good fight than hand over to some dark forces. But better still, rather fight the good fight and win, and that's what we're going to do.
I'm asked to announce the details for tomorrow's memorial service. It's at the Joburg City Hall at 2 o'clock. And you're all welcome.
Well, that's a live media briefing at the Nelson Mandela Foundation in Houghton about the postponement of late struggle icon Ahmed Kathrada's memorial service. It was, however, announced that the foundation will actually go ahead with the memorial service, and they've just given the date. They express, however, their shock and disappointment at the postponement by the presidency, saying neither the wife of Kathrada nor the foundation were consulted prior to this, and no reasons were also given. They also call for people and MPs to stand together in the motion of no confidence in President Zuma. Kathrada's wife, Barbara Hogan, said that last night's developments made them all think twice about getting support from a president who has completely lost his marbles. She was scathing on how Zuma has handled the whole reshuffling of cabinet, stating that even his own party has shot out against this move. She said his actions show what an inapt president he actually is, and called on society to form a force to remove those who want to bring the country to its knees. She went.
We thank you. We know you've been working very hard today since the early hours. In fact, some of you didn't sleep, like me. You've been following the story. And we thank you really for telling it as it is and keeping us on the loop about what's going on. We know you've worked very hard, and maybe someday you'll be rewarded. And that's the end of our briefing. And the statement that was read out will be issued as you walk out. And those who are not here, we've got your email addresses, we'll send it out. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Yes.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
That's so strong. You speak from the heart. Well done. So what time is tomorrow morning?
2 in the afternoon.
No.
The 9, yes. Cheese.
I'm telling you.
The shot, this is